It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Elvis Presley was restless. Not the kind of restless that made him want to jump on a stage and sing for thousands, but a quiet, almost melancholic kind of restlessness. He was at Graceland, surrounded by all the comforts a man could ever want. Yet a strange boredom had settled over him like a thick Memphis humidity. He'd fiddled with his guitars, paced the living room, even tried to teach one of the house staff a new card trick. But nothing quite scratched the itch. He wandered into the kitchen where a newspaper lay open on the counter, probably left by one of the cooks. His eyes drifted over the local news, the advertisements for car sales and furniture stores. Then a small, unassuming headline caught his attention. It wasn't flashy, not like the headlines that usually screamed his name. The absurdity of it was exactly what he needed, a look-alike contest for him. The very idea was hilarious. Could anyone actually look more like Elvis than Elvis himself? He doubted it. A mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. He'd spent years being the king, the legend, the icon. Every move he made was scrutinized, every outfit photographed. But what if just for a moment he could be someone else? Someone who just happened to look like Elvis Presley? The thought grew, blossoming into a full-blown idea. He could enter as a joke. No one would ever suspect it was actually him. He'd wear a simple outfit, nothing too flashy. Maybe even try to act a little less Elvis. He'd use a fake name, of course, something plain, like Gene Smith. Or perhaps, better yet, something subtly amusing. He picked up the phone, a sudden burst of energy replacing his earlier ennui. "Charlie," he said, his voice brimming with a newfound excitement, "get me the number for the Memphis Community Center and cancel my appointments for tomorrow afternoon. I've got a very important audition." Charlie, ever loyal and rarely questioning, simply said, "Yes, sir." Elvis hung up, a wide grin spreading across his face. This was perfect. A little escapade, a chance to step outside his own skin for a few hours, to see what it was like on the other side, to be one of the people who admired him, who tried to capture his magic. And the idea of winning a year's supply of his favorite sandwich, that was just a cherry on top of a very sweet, very funny cake. He spent the rest of the day in an uncharacteristic quiet. Usually, when he had a wild idea, he'd gather his Memphis mafia, tell them the plan, and they'd all jump on board, making it bigger and louder. But this was different. This was his secret, his private joke. He wanted to experience it without the usual fanfare, without the protective bubble that always surrounded him. He thought about what he'd wear, not the rhinestone-studded jumpsuits, definitely not. He'd go for a classic look, maybe a sharp black suit or a simple patterned shirt with dark pants, something that said Elvis without screaming, "I am Elvis." He knew his voice would be the biggest giveaway, but he figured he could play it down, maybe sing a little less powerfully, a little more casually. As evening fell, he found himself humming Heartbreak Hotel. Under his breath, a song he'd sung thousands of times, but now it felt fresh, new. He imagined walking onto that small stage under the modest lights of a community center facing a panel of local judges. Would they see it, the real him, or would they just see another hopeful impersonator trying to catch a glimmer of the king's light? The thought was exhilarating. It wasn't about proving anything, not really. It was about pure, unadulterated fun. A chance to be just Gene Smith, a guy who really looked like Elvis Presley. He imagined the other contestants, some undoubtedly taking it very seriously, others perhaps just as amused as he was. He knew it was a ridiculous plan, risky even. The thought of the priceless expressions on the judges' faces if they ever found out. Well, that was a reward in itself, far better than any silly prize. Tomorrow the king would become a commoner just for a day, and he couldn't wait. He finally felt that familiar spark, that thrill of something new and exciting, something utterly, gloriously unpredictable. For the first time in days, the restlessness was gone, replaced by a quiet, joyful anticipation. He finally felt like himself again, ready for an adventure, however small. The next morning, Elvis woke up with a spring in his step. The novelty of his secret plan hadn't worn off. If anything, it had grown more appealing overnight. He decided against anything too elaborate for his disguise. After all, how do you disguise Elvis Presley when the whole point is to look like him? He settled on a subtle approach. Instead of his usual carefully coiffed hair, he ran a hand through it a bit more casually, letting a few strands fall artfully, almost messily. Picked out a deep blue collared shirt, open at the neck, paired with dark slacks. No flashy belts, no heavy jewelry, just a simple gold chain with a small cross, a gift from his mother. He looked, he thought, like a man who admired Elvis, perhaps even resembled him, but not necessarily was him. He wanted to project an air of relaxed confidence, not superstar intensity. His stage name was the next challenge, Gene Smith. Felt too obvious, too generic. He needed something that hinted at his identity without giving it away. He paced his bedroom, running through names. Finally, it hit him. Ann, his middle name, and for a last name, Preston. It sounded close enough, but different. Aaron Preston. Perfect. It had a nice ring to it, and the subtle nod to his true identity amused him greatly. He practiced his walk in front of the mirror. Less swagger, more of a smooth, easy stride. He tried to soften his gaze, to be less piercingly my doc. It felt strange, like trying to sing off key on purpose. Every fiber of his being was trained to command attention, to radiate star power. Now he was trying to dim that light, just a little. You off somewhere special, boss? Charlie walked in, holding a fresh cup of coffee, pausing at the sight of Elvis. Looking rather normal, Elvis grinned, a boyish, conspiratorial grin. Just heading out for a little personal project, Charlie. Nothing for you to worry about. He winked. Might be back with a year's supply of dessert. Charlie, bless his heart, simply nodded. Used to Elvis's eccentricities, he knew better than to ask too many questions. Elvis grabbed his car keys, opting for a less conspicuous sedan. Instead of his Cadillac, he drove himself. A rare treat. The freedom of it felt invigorating. He blended into traffic, just another car on a Memphis street. He imagined the headlines if anyone found out. Elvis Presley enters, look-alike contest. The absurdity of it made him laugh out loud in the car. He arrived at the Memphis Community Center, a brick building that looked much like any other. A banner slightly faded announced the King of Cool look-alike contest with hand-drawn images of a stylized Elvis. He parked discreetly around the back just in case. Inside, the lobby buzzed with activity. Men of all ages, shapes, and sizes were milling around, some already in full costume, others in various states of transformation. There were rhinestone jumpsuits of every color, sequined capes, and gravity-defying pompadours. The air hummed with the scent of hairspray and nervous anticipation. Elvis felt a genuine wave of amusement wash over him. These people, his fans, loved him enough to dedicate their time and effort to celebrating his image. It was truly humbling, even as he found the situation hilarious. He walked over to the registration table where a harried-looking woman with a nom Todd reading Brenda was checking off names. "Name?" she asked, not even looking up. "Aaron Preston," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, just a touch lower than his usual speaking voice. Brenda glanced up, her eyes widening slightly. She did a double-take, her gaze lingering on his familiar features. For a moment, Elvis thought he was busted. Her eyes narrowed. "Wow," she breathed. You're really good. Bye." "Okay, Aaron Preston, you're number 17. The stage is through that door. We'll call you when it's your turn." She handed, feeling a strange mix of triumph and nerves. Number 17, he was officially in. He walked to the door, Brenda indicated, into a large auditorium. A small stage was set up at one end, flanked by red velvet curtains. Rows of folding chairs faced the stage. The audience was already starting to gather, a mix of curious locals and avid Elvis fans. He spotted some of the other contestants warming up. One portly man with sideburns painted on his cheeks was practicing a sneer in a tiny mirror. Another, lean and intense, was doing leg stretches, clearly preparing for some serious stage moves. A surprisingly young contestant, no older than 16, was nervously adjusting a rhinestone belt that seemed too big for him. Elvis found an empty chair near the back, feeling a peculiar sense of excitement bubbling up. He was truly among them now. He was Aaron Preston, contestant number 17. Just another guy who happened to look a lot like Elvis. This was going to be better than any private concert. This was real life played out for laughs, and he was right in the middle of it. The thrill was intoxicating. He leaned back, crossing his arms ready to watch the show unfold. Unaware that he was about to become a very surprising part of it, the auditorium slowly filled with people. The air grew thick with anticipation, the hum of excited chatter and the occasional blast of an Elvis song playing softly over the loudspeakers. Elvis, or rather Aaron Preston, watched from his quiet corner. He observed the audience members, some carrying signs, others dressed in their own interpretations of 50s and 60s fashion. It was a true celebration of his music and image, and a warmth spread through him. A woman with a booming voice introduced as Betty Mae Johnson, the contest organizer. She wore a sparkly blue jacket and had a beehive hairdo that looked like it could withstand a hurricane. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first annual King of Cool Look-alike contest," she boomed, and a smattering of applause erupted. "We've got some fantastic talent here today, all ready to pay tribute to the one and only Elvis Presley." She introduced the judges. Mr. Henderson, a local music store owner, Mrs. Peterson, a retired drama teacher, and Mayor Thompson, a man whose love for Elvis was legendary in Memphis. They sat at a table in front of the stage pens, poised, looking serious. The first contestant was called. He was a nervous young man with a shaky voice who, despite his enthusiasm, looked more like a distant cousin of Elvis than the king himself. He sang "Hound Dog" with more zeal than accuracy. The audience clapped politely. Elvis felt a pang of sympathy. There was the Vegas Elvis, a man who clearly favored the jumpsuit era, complete with a sweat-stained scarf he threw into the audience. There was the leather jacket Elvis, who channeled the '68 comeback special with surprising intensity. Some were genuinely good, mimicking his vocal inflections and stage moves with impressive precision. Others were less so, but their hearts were clearly in it. Elvis found himself captivated. It was like watching different facets of his own life play out through a funhouse mirror. Each performer brought their own interpretation, their own love for his music. He saw moments of his early career, the raw energy, the hip-swiveling defiance. He saw the polished showman of his later years, the dramatic gestures, the powerful ballads. It was a bizarre, heartwarming, and strangely incapable experience. Finally, Betty Mae called, "Next up, contestant number 17, Aaron Preston." Elvis took a deep breath. This was it. He walked to the side of the stage, the small paper number clutched in his hand. He handed it to a stagehand and waited for his cue. The lights on the stage felt different, less blinding than the stadium lights he was used to, but still bright. He stepped onto the stage, trying to project a calm demeanor, as if this was just a casual performance. He waved to the audience, a friendly, understated wave. He heard a few whispers from the crowd. "Wow, he really looks like him." "And is that?" He ignored them, focusing on the judges. They looked at him with keen interest, their expressions unreadable. "Aaron, what song will you be performing for us today?" Betty Mae asked, a hint of curiosity in her voice. Elvis paused, letting a silence hang in the air for a moment. He had decided against a big showy number. He wanted something that felt authentic, but not overwhelming. "I'll be doing 'Can't Help Falling in Love,'" he said, his voice soft but resonant. It was a song that always held deep meaning for him. A gentle ballad that showcased his vocal range without demanding excessive theatrics. The music started, a simple backing track. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, letting the melody wash over him. Then he opened them, connecting with the audience, not as Elvis Presley, but as Aaron Preston. He sang, not trying to hit every power note, but pouring his genuine emotion into the lyrics. His voice, even slightly muted, was pure velvet, rich and soulful. He moved subtly, swaying gently, letting his hands express the feeling of the song. He watched the judges' faces. Mr. Henderson nodded slowly, a thoughtful expression on his face. Mrs. Peterson dabbed at her eye with a tissue. Even Mayor Thompson, usually a stoic figure, had a soft smile. The audience was silent, completely captivated. They weren't just listening, they were feeling it. As the last note faded, a profound silence hung in the air for a beat, then erupted into thunderous applause. It wasn't just polite clapping. It was genuine, heartfelt appreciation. He bowed slightly, feeling a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the stage lights. It was the joy of connecting with people through music, unburdened by the weight of his own legend. "Thank you, Aaron. That was beautiful," Betty May said, her voice a little choked up. "Simply beautiful," he smiled. A real, unforced smile. He had done it. He had performed as Aaron Preston, and they added to his delight. He walked off stage feeling lighter than he had in days, already looking forward to seeing who else would make it through. This joke was turning out to be more fun than he could have ever imagined. Backstage, the atmosphere was a mix of nervous energy and camaraderie. Contestants who had finished their performances were either buzzing with relief or quietly dissecting their every move. Those still waiting looked pale with anticipation. Elvis, or Aaron Preston, settled back into his unassuming role. He leaned against a wall, observing. He felt a detached appreciation for the effort everyone put in. He noticed a few contestants glance his way, their eyes lingering. He met their gazes with a polite nod, trying to appear approachable but not overly familiar. He heard snippets of conversation. "Did you hear Aaron? He sounded just like him. And I swear, if he wasn't so young, I'd think." The whispers made him grin internally. After about 20 more performances, Betty May's voice crackled over the intercom. "All right, everyone. The judges have made their decisions for the first round. We're narrowing it down to our top 10 for the semifinals." Collective gasp went through the room, followed by a tensed silence. Contestant number 3, Bobby the King Jenkins. A cheer went up for a portly man in a white jumpsuit. Contestant number 9, Hound Dog Harry. A wiry fellow with an impressive pompadour pumped his fist. The young contestant, number 22, surprisingly made it through, looking utterly bewildered. Elvis listened, a tiny flicker of anticipation in his chest. He hadn't expected to care, but the competitive spirit, even in jest, was starting to kick in. He was curious to see if his casual performance had been enough to impress the judges. And finally, Betty May announced, her voice building to a crescendo, "Contestant number 17, Aaron Preston." A genuine smile touched Elvis's lips. He wasn't just in. He was moving forward. A few other contestants clapped him on the back as he walked towards the designated area for the finalists. He exchanged a brief, polite nod with Bobby Jenkins, who gave him a knowing wink. The semi-finalists gathered, about 10 of them. Betty May gave them instructions for the next round. "You'll each perform another song, something different from your first. The judges will be looking for versatility and stage presence." Elvis decided on Jailhouse Rock. It was a classic, full of energy and iconic moves. He knew he could deliver it with flair without giving away his true identity. He'd just have to hold back a little on the raw power. He watched the other semi-finalists perform. Bobby Jenkins belted out "Burning Love" with gusto, his voice surprisingly strong despite his girth. Harry delivered a surprisingly tender "Love Me Tender," showing a different side to his usual bravado. The young contestant, whose name was apparently Jimmy, performed "Teddy Bear" with an earnest charm that won over the audience. When it was his turn again, Elvis felt a surge of pure, unadulterated enjoyment. He walked onto the stage, the music for Jailhouse Rock kicking in with a familiar driving beat. He let his body move naturally, the rhythm flowing through him. He didn't do the full, wild gyrations of his early days, but he certainly owned the stage. His hips swayed, his hands sliced through the air, and his voice, charged with energy, filled the room. He heard a few gasps from the audience, saw some people leaning forward in their seats, completely mesmerized. The judges' faces were a study in concentration. Mr. Henderson tapped his pen thoughtfully. Mrs. Peterson looked on with wide, appreciative eyes. Even Mayor Thompson cracked a small smile, tapping his foot. They were clearly impressed. As the final chords rang out, the applause was even louder than before. Cheers erupted from the audience. Elvis took a bow. Feeling genuinely pleased, he hadn't held back too much. He'd given them a taste of the real thing. Enough to leave them wanting more, but not enough to blow his cover completely. Walking off stage, he felt a strange sense of vindication. It wasn't about the prize or even winning the contest. It was about the pure joy of performing, of connecting with an audience, and seeing their reaction. It was a reminder of why he did what he did. Elvis felt a surge of triumph. He was in the top 3. He had genuinely impressed them. The joke was escalating beautifully. He couldn't wait to see how it ended. The most unexpected part of this adventure wasn't just entering. It was realizing how much he was genuinely enjoying the ride. The air baxed was electric. Only 3 contestants remained. Bobby Jenkins, the veteran impersonator. Young Jimmy, the earnest newcomer. And Aaron Preston, the mystery man. Elvis observed his fellow finalists with a new kind of interest. They weren't just props in his joke. They were dedicated fans, each with their own story. Bobby Jenkins, a man in his late 40s, adjusted his sequin scarf with a flourish. He had a natural stage presence honed over years of performing at local fairs and tribute shows. He caught Elvis's eye and offered a knowing smile. "Well, Aaron," Bobby drawled, his voice a surprisingly good imitation of Elvis's speaking voice. "Looks like it's down to us. You're mighty good. Where'd you learn to move like that?" Elvis chuckled, trying to keep his response casual. "Oh, just watched a lot of old films. And I guess some of it just comes naturally." He tried to sound humble. Bobby nodded slowly, his eyes still studying him. "Natural, huh? You've got a gift, son. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never seen anyone come as close to the king as you do, especially not without all the usual bells and whistles." He gestured to Elvis's simpler attire. "No fancy jumpsuit. Just wanted to keep it real," Elvis replied, a slight mischievous glint in his eye. "Let the music speak for itself." Bobby let out a hearty laugh. "I like that, a true artist. Most of us need the glitter to make 'em believe. But you just step out there, and it's like he's in the room." He paused, then leaned in slightly. "You ever thought about doing this professionally? You'd be big, kid, bigger than all of us." Elvis felt a strange mix of flattery and guilt. He was taking this so seriously, and Elvis was just playing a prank. "Maybe someday," he said vaguely, trying to deflect the praise. Then Jimmy approached them, his young face alight with excitement. He looked barely old enough to drive with bright, innocent eyes. "Mr. Jenkins, Mr. Preston, this is amazing, isn't it? I can't believe I made it this far." Bobby clapped him on the shoulder. "You earned it, kid. You got heart. And a nice voice, too." Jimmy beamed. "Thank you, sir. My grandpa, he was the biggest Elvis fan. He taught me all his songs. He always said I sounded like Elvis when I sang. He passed a few months ago, and I entered this for him. I just wanted to make him proud." This was more than just a contest for Jimmy. This was a tribute, a way to honor his grandfather's memory. It made Elvis's playful prank seem almost disrespectful for a moment. He looked at Jimmy, seeing not just a contestant but a genuinely devoted fan carrying on a legacy. "That's a beautiful reason to sing, Jimmy," Elvis said, his voice softer than before. "Your grandfather would be very proud, I'm sure." Jimmy's eyes widened, and he looked at Elvis with an almost reverent admiration. "You really think so? Your voice? It's incredible, Mr. Preston. You sound exactly..." Elvis swallowed. "I try," he said, trying to keep his expression neutral. He was teetering on the edge of revealing himself just by being himself. Bobby, ever observant, cut in. "All right, boys. Betty Mae's coming back. Looks like they're ready for the final round." The three men stood a little straighter as Betty Mae returned to the stage. She explained the final challenge. Each contestant would perform one more song, a showstopper, a number that truly colgate their talent and connection to the king. The winner would be crowned Memphis's King of Cool. Elvis had already picked his final song, Suspicious Mind. It was a powerhouse number full of emotion and dramatic flair. He knew he could deliver it with every ounce of the genuine passion that had made it a hit. But as he looked at Bobby, the seasoned professional, and Jimmy, the heartfelt tribute artist, he felt a new wave of respect for them. They were not just impersonators, they were keepers of the flame, dedicating their lives to celebrating his music. He knew he could sing Suspicious Minds and blow them all away, leave no doubt about who the real king was. But was that fair? Was that what this joke was about anymore? He wasn't sure. A strange transformation was happening inside him. The initial amusement was still there, but it was now tempered with a surprising sense of humility and a genuine admiration for the people who loved his music enough to embody it. As the first finalist, Bobby Jenkins strode confidently onto the stage to perform My Way. Elvis found himself genuinely rooting for him, and for Jimmy too. This contest had become more than a prank. It was a peek into his own enduring legacy and the chance to truly connect with the heart of his fans, anonymously and honestly. And that, he realized, was a far more valuable prize than any year's supply of sandwiches. The final round was about to begin, and the tension in the auditorium was palpable. The audience buzzed with excitement, eagerly awaiting the last performances that would decide Memphis's King of Cool. Elvis felt a strange mix of anticipation and a burgeoning new feeling, a genuine respect for his fellow competitors. Bobby Jenkins, the first to go, delivered a powerful rendition of My Way. He didn't just sing it, he lived it. Every note was infused with emotion, every gesture dramatic and intentional. He hit the big notes with surprising strength, and his stage presence was undeniable. The crowd roared with applause when he finished, clearly impressed. Bobby took a deep bow, a seasoned performer, basking in the adoration. Next up was young Jimmy. He had chosen an American Tryon, a bold choice for such a young performer. As the song's majestic melody began, Jimmy closed his eyes, his face etched with genuine emotion. His voice, while not as powerful as Bobby's or Elvis's own, was clear and heartfelt. He sang with a sincerity that was deeply moving, his reverence for the song and what it represented shining through. He wasn't just performing, he was sharing a part of his soul, a tribute to his grandfather and to the legacy he held dear. The audience listened in hushed silence, many visibly touched. When he finished, the applause was softer but just as profound, filled with warmth and admiration. Now it was Elvis's turn. Preston, contestant number 17, Betty Mae announced, her voice full of expectation. As he walked onto the stage, Elvis felt the familiar thrill of performance. He looked out at the audience, their faces a sea of expectant smiles. He had chosen Suspicious Minds, a song that allowed for raw emotion, dynamic movement, and vocal power. He knew he could utterly dominate the stage with it, but a new thought had taken root. He wasn't just Preston, the anonymous prankster. He was also Elvis Presley, witnessing the impact of his own work through the eyes of his fans. He felt the newfound appreciation for their dedication, their passion. The music started. The iconic bass line and drums kicking in, Elvis took a deep breath. He decided not to hold back completely, but to perform with genuine artistry and respect for the song rather than just as a perfect imitation. He let his voice soar, rich and resonant, hitting the high notes with ease. His movements were fluid, instinctive, those famous karate-inspired gestures, the powerful stances. He moved with a natural grace that none of the other contestants could truly retouch, because for him, it wasn't an act. It was simply how he moved. He saw the judges lean forward, their expressions a mixture of awe and intense scrutiny. Mr. Henderson gripped his pen, his eyes wide. Mrs. Peterson was openly weeping, a handkerchief clutched in her hand. Even Mayor Thompson, usually so reserved, had a look of absolute wonder on his face, his mouth slightly agape. The audience was in a trance. Many were on their feet, swaying, some humming along. They weren't just watching a performance. They were experiencing something profound, something that transcended a simple look-alike contest. Elvis could feel their energy, their pure delight. He poured every ounce of his legendary charisma into the song, not for a contest prize, but for the sheer joy of connecting with his people, his fans, in this unique, anonymous way. As the final dramatic "Still in Love with You" faded into the last chords, the auditorium erupted. The applause was deafening, a wave of sound that washed over him. People were shouting, whistling, some even throwing flowers onto the stage. It was a genuine outpouring of emotion, far beyond what he had expected for a community center contest. He took a humble bow, a wide, genuine smile on his face. He felt exhilarated, alive. He knew deep down that he had given them a performance they would never forget, even if they never knew who he truly was. He walked off the stage, the echoes of the applause still ringing in his ears, feeling a profound sense of satisfaction. The judges huddled their heads together, clearly in a deep discussion. Bobby and Jimmy both looked at him, their expressions a mix of awe and a little bit of resignation. They knew they had seen something truly special. Elvis watched them, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. This was the moment the verdict was coming. And no matter what it was, he knew he had already won something far more valuable than any trophy. The wait felt endless. The judges deliberated for what seemed like an eternity, their hushed whispers and occasional emphatic gestures carrying a sense of weighty decision. Elvis, Bobby, and Jimmy stood back to the silence, thick with anticipation. Bobby maintained a professional calm, while Jimmy fidgeted nervously, his youth making him less adept at hiding his excitement. Elvis, for his part, felt a surprising flutter of nerves. He had performed with genuine passion. Would it be enough for them to recognize the true artistry, even if they missed the actual identity? Finally, Betty May reappeared on stage, microphone in hand. She looked solemn, almost reverent. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice a little breathless, "the judges have made their incredibly difficult decision." She paused, letting the suspense build. "Every one of our finalists was phenomenal, a true tribute to the king of rock and roll." Elvis braced himself. He imagined the drum roll, the fanfare. His heart thumped a little faster than it should have for a man simply participating in a joke. In third place, Betty May announced, her voice rising slightly, and securing a special mention for his incredible stage presence and vocal purity, contestant number 17, Aaron Preston. He, Elvis Presley. The king had just come in third in an Elvis look-alike. A wave of disbelief washed over him, followed almost immediately by an overwhelming burst of laughter that he had to suppress with great effort. It was truly, utterly, hilariously absurd. He'd barely held back, and still third. He managed to keep his face straight, offering a polite, slightly bewildered smile as the audience applauded. He walked forward to accept his ribbon. A simple bronze one from Betty May. She gave him a sympathetic look. "You were truly amazing, Aaron. You really were." "Thank you," he mumbled, trying not to crack up. The irony was too rich. Betty May continued. "And now, in second place for his heartfelt performance and dedication to the king's legacy, representing the true spirit of Elvis fans everywhere, contestant number 22, Jimmy." Young Jimmy gasped, his eyes wide with surprise and joy. He practically ran onto the stage, beaming, accepting his silver ribbon. He hugged Betty May, then turned to the audience overwhelmed. He had made his grandfather proud. Elvis felt a genuine warmth for the kid. He deserved. And finally, Betty May's voice soared. "Our grand prize winner, the undisputed Memphis King of Cool, with a commanding performance and years of dedicated showmanship, contestant number 3, Bobby the King Jenkins." Bobby strode onto the stage with a triumphant grin. accepting his gold ribbon and a large gaudy trophy shaped like a golden microphone. The audience erupted in cheer, clearly ecstatic. Bobby the King Jenkins had won. Elvis stood off to the side, holding his bronze ribbon, watching the other two. He felt no bitterness, only a profound sense of amusement. Third place. It was the perfect punchline to his little prank. He'd gone in expecting to dominate or at least be recognized as so eerily similar that he'd win by default. Instead, two men who revered his image had managed to out-Elvis him. It was humbling, hilarious, and oddly heartwarming. He looked at Bobby, who was basking in the glory, shaking hands with the judges. He looked at Jimmy, who was still slightly teary-eyed with happiness. They had earned it, each in their own way. Bobby, through years of honing his craft and performing, and Jimmy, through pure, unadulterated love and a desire to honor his family. He had performed from the heart, given it his all, or almost all, and still placed behind two dedicated fans. It truly showed how much his legacy meant to people, how deeply ingrained his image and music were in the culture. It wasn't about perfection. It was about connection, about passion, about what Elvis represented to so many. As the cameras flashed and the winners posed, Elvis felt a quiet joy. His joke had turned into something else entirely. It had become a valuable, humbling experience. He had stepped out of the spotlight only to find a new, even more profound connection to the very people who put him there, and that, he realized, was the real prize. The year's supply of peanut butter and banana sandwiches could wait. The post-contest scene was a blur of flashing cameras, congratulatory handshakes, and excited chatter. Bobby Jenkins, the undisputed king of cool, was swarmed by local reporters eager to hear about his victory. He held his golden microphone trophy high, a triumphant smile plastered on his face. Jimmy, still slightly overwhelmed, but beaming, stood beside him, clutching his silver ribbon and accepting enthusiastic pats on the back. Elvis, the third-place finisher, found himself somewhat overlooked, which was exactly what he wanted. He stood slightly to the side, his bronze ribbon a quiet testament to his participation. He observed Bobby's practiced ease with the media, the way he answered questions about his technique and his lifelong devotion to Elvis. Bobby spoke with genuine passion, detailing how he'd studied every concert, every move, every vocal nuance. "It's more than just a costume," Bobby proclaimed. "It's about embodying the spirit of the king." Then Jimmy was pulled into the spotlight. He spoke with a youthful earnestness about his grandfather, and how Elvis's music had always been a bond between them. "I just wanted to do him proud," Jimmy mumbled, a tear glistening in his eye. "He would have loved this." His sincerity was incredibly touching. Elvis felt a profound connection to these two men. They weren't just imitators, they were genuine fans, deeply invested in the magic he had created. They carried his torch in their own ways with sincerity and devotion. Bobby represented the enduring showmanship and dedication of a seasoned performer, while Jimmy embodied the innocent, heartfelt love of a new generation of fans. Bobby finally broke away from the reporters and approached Elvis, a triumphant but respectful smile on his face. "Aaron, my man, good job out there. You truly were something else." He extended a hand. "Bobby Jenkins, good to meet you properly." Elvis shook his hand. "Aaron Preston. Congratulations, Bobby. You earned it. Your My Way was incredible." Bobby clapped him on the shoulder. "Thanks. But honestly, your Suspicious Minds, that was a whole other level. I've never heard anyone get that close. It was like, well, it was like the king himself was on stage. Gave me chills." He looked at Elvis with a keen, searching gaze, a hint of suspicion in his eyes. "You sure you're just an Aaron Preston?" Elvis chuckled, maintaining his casual demeanor. "Just a guy." He tried to deflect the question with a friendly smile. Just then Jimmy joined them, clutching his ribbon. "Mr. Preston, that was amazing. I thought you were definitely going to win. You were so good." "You were excellent too, Jimmy," Elvis said warmly. "Your American tour was very moving. Your grandfather would be so proud." Jimmy blushed. "Please." "Thanks, Mr. Preston. My family's already calling me Little King Jimmy now." Bobby laughed. "That's how it starts, kid. One day it's little King Jimmy. The next you're on a stage in Vegas." He winked at Jimmy, then turned back to Elvis. "Seriously, Aaron, you got something special. Don't waste it. You really could make a living doing this if you wanted." Elvis nodded thoughtfully. "I appreciate that, Bobby, I really do." He looked from Bobby to Jimmy, these two men who had just outperformed him. In his own look-alike contest, one, a veteran who had dedicated his life to embodying the legend, the other a passionate newcomer, carrying on a beloved tradition. He felt a deep sense of humility. For years, he had been the unreachable star, the icon on the pedestal. But here in this humble community center, he was just Aaron Preston, a fellow fan among fans, and in that anonymity, he found a refreshing perspective. It wasn't about being the best Elvis. It was about the shared love for the music, the enduring power of the legend. The absurdity of his third-place finish continued to amuse him, but it was now overlaid with a profound sense of gratitude. He had witnessed firsthand the depth of devotion his fans held, the genuine joy his music brought them. He realized that this joke had offered him a unique gift, a chance to see his own legacy through fresh eyes from the outside looking in. And what he saw was beautiful. As the crowd slowly began to disperse and the winners continued to bask in their well-deserved glory, Elvis quietly slipped away. He had gotten his laugh, but he had also gained something far more meaningful. As the crowd thinned out, a few persistent fans approached Elvis, complimenting his performance. "You were incredible, Aaron," one woman gushed. "Are you going to enter next year? You just need a little more pizzazz." She clearly thought his understated approach was a lack of effort. Politely thanked them, managing to maintain his calm, even as one woman squinted at him, her brow furrowed in thought. "You know," she said, tapping her chin, "you remind me so much of Elvis when he was younger." "It's uncanny. Are you, by any chance, related to him?" Elvis's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment of truth. He forced a casual laugh. "Oh, I get that a lot," he said, trying to sound dismissive. "Just a coincidence, I suppose. Guess I got lucky in the looks department." He gave her his most charming and practiced, aw-shucks smile. The woman seemed to accept his answer, though a flicker of doubt remained in her eyes. "Well, you certainly have the voice for it," she mused, then wandered off. Still looking a little perplexed, he breathed a sigh of relief. Close call. He decided it was time to make his exit before anyone else got too close to the truth. As he walked towards the back exit, he overheard a fragment of conversation between Mr. Henderson, the music store owner judge, and Mrs. Peterson, the retired drama teacher. "I still can't believe it," Mrs. Peterson whispered, fanning herself with her scorecard. "That Aaron Preston, he gave me chills. It was like I was back in '56. Mr. Henderson nodded, his eyes distant. "Phenomenal, truly phenomenal. The voice, the moves, so natural, almost too natural." He paused, lowering his voice even further. "Brenda from registration told me he signed up as Aaron Preston, you know. Who else had that as a middle name, don't you?" Mrs. Peterson gasped, her eyes widening. "Are you suggesting?" Elvis froze his hand on the doorknob. He held his breath. Mr. Henderson shrugged, a secretive smile playing on his lips. "All I'm saying is, if the king ever wanted to slip away for a little fun, he certainly picked the perfect way to do it. Third place, though. That's the part that gets me," he chuckled softly. "Even if he was holding back to come in third, that switch." Mrs. Peterson started to laugh, a low, knowing sound. "Oh, that's just too perfect. He really does have a sense of humor, doesn't he?" Elvis grinned. They knew, or at least they strongly suspected, and they were keeping his secret. He felt a wave of affection for them. These were true fans who understood the spirit of fun and the private joy he found in this little escapade. He quietly opened the door and slipped out, leaving them to their delightful conspiracy. He walked back to his car, feeling a lightness in his step. The Memphis air felt different, crisp. He looked up at the sky. the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. He had come here feeling restless and bored, looking for a laugh. He had found it in abundance, but he had also found something more. He had seen his own legacy through the eyes of others. He had witnessed the pure, unadulterated joy and passion his music inspired. He had been a part of the audience then, a competitor, then an unexpected third-place finisher. He had met people like Bobby, who dedicated their lives to preserving his image, and people like Jimmy, who carried his music in their hearts as a tribute to loved ones. It wasn't just a contest, it was a mirror. It reflected back to him the enduring power of his art, the love of his fans, and the real meaning of his own stardom. It wasn't about the fame, the money, the adulation. It was about the connection, the music, the simple joy he brought to people's lives. He got into his car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving the community center behind. He was still Elvis Presley, the king, but he felt refreshed, renewed. The prank had been a success in ways he never anticipated. He had found a little piece of himself, a reminder of why he loved what he did, and a newfound appreciation for the people who made it all possible. He had come in third, but in a way that truly mattered. He had won everything. Driving back to Graceland, Elvis felt a profound sense of peace. The earlier restlessness had completely vanished, replaced by a deep contentment. The absurdity of his third-place finish continued to bring a smile to his face, but it was now a knowing, gentle smile, not just one of pure amusement. He thought about Bobby Jenkins, the undisputed winner. Bobby represented the enduring spirit of showmanship, the dedication required to master a craft, even one as niche as impersonation. Bobby had built a career on channeling Elvis, and he did it with genuine love and respect. Elvis admired his perseverance. His years of touring, his connection with audiences craved a taste of the king's magic. Bobby's win was a testament to the power of dedication. Then there was young Jimmy. Jimmy's win felt even more significant. He embodied the heartfelt, pure love of a fan carrying on a family legacy through music. His performance wasn't about perfect technique or flashy moves. It was about genuine emotion, about honor and memory. Jimmy's innocence and deep affection for the music had touched Elvis's heart more than any standing ovation. It reminded Elvis of the simple, honest reasons people loved his songs. And himself, Elvis Presley, Preston, contestant number 17, he had gone into the contest as a joke, a way to break his boredom, to laugh at the world and himself. He had fully expected to walk away as the obvious winner, or at least to cause a sensation by being so unmistakably the real thing. Come in third place was a twist he could never have written, and it was glorious. It was a beautiful, humbling experience. For years, he had been isolated by his fame, shielded by his entourage, viewed as an almost mythical figure. But in that community center, for a few hours, he had been just another guy who loved Elvis Presley. He had been an ordinary person among ordinary people, sharing a common passion. He had seen the joy his music brought them, unburdened by the weight of being the king. He recalled the look on Mrs. Peterson's face, the knowing chuckle from Mr. Henderson they had suspected, and they had let him keep his secret. That act of quiet respect of allowing him his private amusement meant more than any public acclaim. It showed a true understanding, a recognition of the man behind the legend. As he pulled up the long driveway to Graceland, the familiar mansion looked different somehow. It still represented his success, his dreams come true, but it no longer felt like a gilded cage. It felt like home, a place where he could reflect on the incredible journey his life had been and continued to be. He walked into the quiet house, leaving the car outside. Charlie wasn't around, which was fine. He just wanted to sit for a moment to let the day's events settle. He walked into the living room, a soft smile on his face. The year's supply of peanut butter and banana sandwiches was a funny thought, but the true prize from this contest wasn't edible. It was the renewed connection to his fans, the humbling reminder of his own human fallibility, and the pure, unadulterated joy of music and shared passion. He had gained a fresh perspective on his own legacy, seeing it not from the top of the mountain, but from the valley among those who admired it most. Elvis Presley. The king had entered a look-alike contest as a joke and come in third place. And it was, he realized, one of the most fulfilling experiences of his life. He felt a lightness in his soul, a spark rekindled. He was Elvis the legend, but he was also Aaron Preston, a man who had found a little piece of magic in a simple, unexpected contest, and that, he knew, was a memory he would cherish forever. He finally felt at peace, truly, deeply at peace, and ready to sing again for himself and for the people who loved his music so much they became him, if only for a day.